All right, guys, nearly there, nearly through Elizabeth. Right, poverty today. So, have a look at the rise in population and be thinking that's one of the big things in poverty. Rise of population basically means an increase in poverty, and we're going to kind of discuss why. Um, Basically, there was more people to feed, so the price of food rose. Right, that's a big problem. Elizabeth's population is growing by 35% during this period, and the towns and the cities are rapidly growing. So this all has an impact. Right. So these are the real factors that you're going to be looking at in poverty. Changes in farming, bad harvests, rise in population, war, cloth trade collapse, inflation. Right. And people feared the vagabonds. Remember, vagabond like a wanderer. So there's like a hierarchy here. You've got the monarch, nobility, gentry, merchants, yeomanry, labourers, and then where are the vagabonds? They're outside it. They have no place. Wanderers. They often lived outside the law as well. So Elizabethans feared them. You have the urban poor. These are the rural depopulation made the problems of vagabondage even worse. Rural mean those living in the countryside. City life's tough, especially with economic recession. England and Spain kick off, so trade embargoes. We know about the cloth trade. People coming in unemployed. Many people who left their villages are becoming beggars, turning to crime. Outside the city walls, the poor built shacks, tightly packed together. Crime and disorders rife. So urban poor grew really fast. Um, it was thought that people who are able to work, though, should get a job. So we've got to have a distinction between kind of the deserving poor and the undeserving. Right, rising prices. Well, bad harvests mean there's less food, meaning the price of food goes up. Economics 101. Food production grew much slower than the population. Bread for the basis of people's diets and grain prices rose fastest of all. Wages did not rise as fast as prices. With more people wanting to work, labour was cheap. As the population grows, so did the demand for land. Landowners could then charge much higher rents. Some tenants couldn't even afford to keep their land, so some were evicted to make way for sheep farming. What is sheep farming though? Well, 81.6% of England's exports were English wool and woolen cloth. Price of wool is increasing as demand for woolen cloth grew, so farming sheep became very profitable and landowners started it. So more basically the land isn't being used for food, it's being used for sheep, which is a big problem, has an impact on those who are struggling to pay for food. Only larger farms could afford this large-scale business. Problem was, this is being taken land, normally used as common land for growing crops. Farming sheep didn't require labour, so people don't have jobs. Feeding the sheep meant a lot of crops were grown for the sheep to eat, so angered people who were starving. Then you've got the enclosures. So before the enclosures, if you look on the left-hand side, you've got open fields and common land. Common land used to graze animals, open fields divided into strips so people could come and grow crops on it, and then enclosures. This basically stops regular people growing food, and you get richer individuals who would have that land for their own purposes. Again, the old system usually in 3 field rotation. You've got the wheat, the fallow, which the animals graze, and the barley. This problem with the old system was people had to walk over your strips to reach theirs. There's no hedges or fences, poor drainage, really difficult to use new farming techniques. So the enclosures, if you can have a look at the graphic there, basically you can see the rich are dominating, replacing large open fields that basically villagers would grow their food on are now being given to rich individuals for their own devices. Small farms would merge and tenant farmers would be evicted, so high unemployment, rural depopulation, people angry. So you got pastoral farming, farming for animals, whereas arable farming, farming for crops. Why did they enclose? Well, techniques were improving, new ideas spread. Some farmers began to control animal breeding to produce better livestock, stopping livestock trampling over crops. rising food prices encourages an increase in farming crops as well. New techniques are coming into it, better drainage, enclosed fields, easier to plant and drain. Some farmers would practice both animal and arable farming, up and down husbandry it's called. So why did they cause poverty? Well, landowners grew rich, but ordinary farm labourers or those who couldn't afford increased rents, they would suffer. More efficient crop growing techniques. Sheep farming requires less labour, and we've already gone over this. Wages were reduced as the population rose, which is massively problematic. The common land sometimes would be enclosed, so people couldn't grow their own food. Right. Now we move on to the vagabonds. So this is a man being whipped through the street. They were embarrassed and humiliated. Right, so quick recap of the rising poor. Population increase leads to rising prices. You've got the enclosures leading to unemployment, leading to vagabondage. Right, I'll just leave this one on for you to have a little look. Do read and take notes on reasons for poverty in Elizabethan England. It captures everything you need, so please check that. Okay, so we have the attitudes to the poor. So people's attitudes towards the poor usually kind of based on fear and distrust. Many poor people tried to support themselves through begging. Homeless beggars traveled the country relying on charity. People hated the cranks who pretended to be sick or disabled to gain these benefits. Some would even eat soap to make themselves appear more in need. Okay, we have the deserving poor. So people were divided into two categories: deserving, undeserving. Deserving were people who were unable to support themselves, including people who had genuine illness or disability, including widows with lots of children, old people, and orphans. People were expected to kind of support the deserving poor. Then we have the undeserving poor. They are sturdy beggars, people considered fit to work, but apparently chose not to. They would roam the countryside. It was thought that this type of poor person was a nuisance, burden to local people, and deserving of punishment. So keep an eye on those two distinctions. So our government approaches, they took harsh punishments for vagabonds or vagrancy. If caught, a vagrant or vagabond were put in the stocks, whipped, branded. They were then sent back to their own parish. Those who were caught repeatedly could be sentenced to death. Okay, government action. So poor relief was a local issue, dealt with in different ways in different places. Elizabeth's government adopted a national approach. New laws were passed for vagrancy, changing how the poor were seen, unemployment recognised. Then you get the Vagabonds Act of 1572. Right, so I'll let you have a little look at these. You need to know these. 1563 Statute of Artificers, basically to ensure poor relief was collected. Anyone who refused to pay could be imprisoned. Officials failing to organise poor relief could be fined. So Statute of Artificers, basically ensuring you have poor relief. Vagabonds Act, to deter vagrancy. Vagrants would be whipped, a hole drilled through each ear. Vagrants would be imprisoned if arrested a second time for vagrancy. You've got Poor Relief Act, which distinguished between able-bodied poor and impotent poor, and to help able-bodied poor find work. Justices of the Peace would provide able-bodied poor with wool, raw materials to help them kind of make something and sell it. So do make notes on these, and I'll leave you this to have a look over. Right, I am racing through these because I'm honestly just trying to get them up before the exam. But right, we'll move on to exploration next.